here. We'll try our best, but talking about housing affordability, bringing more supply to the area. My next guest, to majority of you, is not going to be a massive surprise. He probably is one of the best looking people in the real estate world. He definitely is one of the biggest experts in my world, and I do not joke about that. I mentioned earlier, I said hi to some investment groups. I said hi to the people in those investment groups. I think all these investment groups that myself and Simeon and REC Canada are collaborating with. We've been with them for decades, some more recent than that. They all offer something a little different. I love them all. They're led by amazing people. In fact, those people that they're led by, I wouldn't even have conversations with them and bring them to you if I didn't vouch for them. But this next guy, Mr. Darren Vorros, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Hey, you guys know what I'm saying about the good looking and the style and all that kind of stuff. You guys obviously see it. I love seeing you here, buddy. Darren and I have done so many things together in terms of content, and obviously he was in our first marathon as well, which was a couple of years ago, and I had to have him back. But Synergy Mastermind, brother, this group that you have, I've spoken at the event, at one of your events, sorry, and I think it's different because I think they're all different.
Yep.
And you guys all add value in certain ways. What I like about your specific group is the fact that you're actually out there doing the work. Mm. And when I say you, I don't actually mean just the collective you. I mean you as Darren Vorros. You're the one who's actually putting money in renovating these properties, adding more housing to the city, as I was mentioning while I was introing you. And then I'm actually speaking to some of your members, and they're actually doing the work. And so we're going to go into the new housing laws, and I think that's very, very important. That's going to be our conversation. But really quickly, and then don't give them the gift that I know we're going to give them until the end, okay? Yeah, no, and in case I forget, Alto or Steven, just remind me, Darren came bearing gifts, and so he's going to give a gift to everybody who's watching right now. But talk about Synergy for a second, man.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on again. You're the second best looking guy in the room, so I appreciate that. And Synergy was really a group created for I call it the elite investors in Canada. There's so many different groups, and we're a part of many of them, right? And you've had a lot of people on today. And I think of Synergy as the top 1% of all of those groups. So it's the people that are out there doing really big things, building businesses around real estate investing. So it's that elite group. We make it exclusive. It's 50 members. That's it. That's all we bring in every single year. We run 3 live events, one in the East, one in the West, and now one in an international destination.
Well, let me guess why you're doing it international. Go on.
So yeah, that's really what Synergy is. It's just about, it's about entrepreneurism and, coming together as a collective group of high achievers and how do we just get to the next level?
And there's something, while you were just talking, brother, because I've spoken to your partner as well, and he mentioned something that just came to my mind that I think you guys are also doing a little different. Again, coming from an outsider who speaks to all the heads of the investment groups, and I love them all. What I think that you guys are doing different based on my conversation with your partner was the fact that you're not only teaching and educating and helping people execute on real estate investing, but there's this component to it about the business aspect of it. So where the heck did that come from? Because that's not really what majority of the others do. They're the heads of these groups, Patrick Fancy, the Scotts and the Michaels. Shout out to everybody. Alfonso. They actually, as I get to know them for a long time, they're very business oriented. They're entrepreneurs. They run it like a business, but they don't teach it as much. And where you guys do that differently. Yeah. So where did that come about?
I think it came out of a necessity, right? I think a lot of people have incredible real estate investing, acumen. They know how to buy, buildings. They know how to do development, but a lot of times where there's a gap is people don't necessarily know how to build a business around real estate. How do you hire your first staff? How do you hire your second and third? How do you grow? How do you grow exponentially, right? And so that's where Synergy was born. I was like, I want to be a part of a group because I have the real estate investing down pat.
Yeah.
Now I want to go and build a business. I want to scale a business. How do I do that? I looked in Canada. There wasn't anything else out there. And I was like, well, let's just create one. So I partnered with my friends out in the West Coast. I kind of represent represent the East, they represent the West. We've brought our two communities together, and that's how Synergy was born.
And then just really quickly to dive into that, because I want to get into our topic, but you actually will talk about scaling, like hiring, because investors don't think like that. I think maybe at like phase one, they'll be like, okay, I'll outsource the property management.
Yeah.
Right, but we all kind of know
a service
that.
provider for
It's
not
there you
not
go.
anyone on your team. That's not like an employee.
Exactly.
Right?
And so now where you're going to be speaking and you educate people on the fact, like, here's how you actually hire someone.
Yep.
And here's maybe what you need to pay them. And if you guys don't yet follow my boy, Darren, I think number one, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think YouTube's your thing.
Yeah,
like, is that the Darren thing that you like? Okay.
Yeah.
Just again, open up another browser. Guys, success leaves clues. Okay. And he's left a lot of them for you, and he's going to leave more today. But go to YouTube, punch in his name. I think I was just fooling around yesterday with just taking a look at YouTube. I mean, the growth of your YouTube page is unbelievable. I remember when it was 1,000 people, which is huge in an accomplishment. Yeah. I think it's north of 20,800. That's how sick I am. And you know that I did see
exactly
it.
Right.
It's almost exactly.
Yeah.
See,
we just hit over 1 million views.
Oh, I forgot. That's awesome. Like, you guys need to see the videos. You do a great job, and you actually go in depth into the conversations. One more thing about Synergy. Am I wrong when I say majority of the education and the execution is focused on development?
It's not exclusively focused on development.
Okay.
We have, I would say, there's 3 big categories that people fall into. One, they're capital raisers.
Okay.
2, they're developers. Or 3, they're multifamily syndicators.
Okay.
I would say those are the biggest 3. But we have a woman who's an Airbnb specialist. We have some people that do short-term rentals, that do rent to own. There's all kinds of specialists within our group. But I would say the majority of them hit those 3 categories.
Okay. Yeah. Simos touched a little bit on like investing into multiplexes and
Yeah.
stuff. What's something that you you see it differently. You've done a lot more like personally yourself than the average person for sure. Feel free to touch on that if you want.
Yep.
But the one thing that I know that you've done unique in our city and what you've brought is this accessory dwelling units,
Yep.
right? This laneway homes. What's the other word? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Garden suites.
Garden
laneway
suites. I
yeah.
apologize. So,
Yeah.
how did that all come about, man? And how does someone who maybe already has 7 pre-construction condos, they have some multiplexes, but now they want to get into the garden suites and the laneway housing? What's the 2-4 things that make sure you know this before you get into it, guys?
Well, if I can, I'll take a little step
Please
backwards.
do. And the actual new laws talk about that as well.
And just talk about the need for housing right now.
Love it.
It is crazy. I've heard it on a couple of your other guests. I was listening this morning. And I think, there is a massive housing shortage in Canada right now. And, part of that problem is that we just continue to sprawl. And, when you're looking at these major metropolises like, Toronto, like Hamilton, you have to go back to the core. All the services are already there. So you're either going up or you're adding density to an existing lot. So City of Toronto now has basically approved garden suites, laneway suites. Those 2 are pretty simple to delineate. If you've got a laneway, it's a laneway suite. If you don't, it's a garden suite. And you can basically add a secondary home in the back of your property. And now it can only be 1 additional unit, but that could be a 2-story with a basement. I mean, you could have a full 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house in the back of your house.
It's crazy.
And so what that does is it's starting to add density to the city, which we badly need, right? We are running out of space, essentially. We don't want to sprawl because then we have to put in new sewers and new water lines and new power and everything. City of Toronto, all these major cities, they have the infrastructure there. They just need to double down on it and focus on density. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at is just adding those garden suites and laneway suites. But it's also most of the municipalities across Ontario and even across Canada are now changing their zoning bylaws to allow for more density inside of an existing property.
Is there a lot of those available though? Is there a lot of laneway housing? It's not built yet, but if you have a laneway, first and foremost, is there a lot of properties in the core of downtown that you would say, look, there's a lot of opportunity here?
I don't know the exact
number,
but
that's fine.
There's 7,000 lots or something that are eligible for this. I'll give you a website, super easy. I think it's called ADU Search.
Okay.
I think it's .com or .ca. Just go on there, punch in your address, and it'll tell you whether you can add an accessory dwelling unit.
You just put your address in easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so just say
that's an easy one. Just go there and search.
I go to adusearch.ca or .com. my property is eligible.
Yep.
What the heck do I need to know now?
So now you've just got to look at the zoning bylaw, right? What are the setbacks that you need from the existing building? What are the setbacks from the laneway at the back, from the side, all that kind of stuff? Can I do 1 story? Can I do 2 story? So you just have to look at that. And then there's some rules around, it's really around fire. Everything has to do with fire, right?
Safety.
So like, can the fire department get to
Exactly.
your property?
Got
right?
it.
So if there's a fire back there, can they do that? So it's just, you can learn the basics of it, but I would say if you're really interested in developing something like this, talk to somebody, an architect, somebody who specializes in.
Or just go to Synergy.
Yeah.
Like me personally, again, success leaves clues, guys. You just go to the people that have done it because you've actually done it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it virtually because you and I did a bunch of content together.
Yep.
And yours was a 2-bedroom that you built?
I have a 2-bedroom that we built. Yeah, it's a single story. It was actually an existing structure. So that's another whole thing that if you've got a garage or something, you can convert it to a living space. That's one element, or you can actually just build from the ground up. You can just add another piece of property at the back of your property, essentially.
I've also heard, and I had somebody on the podcast as well, so he spoke about it, that you can actually, if you have a garage, you can literally turn your garage into an accessory unit as well. Yep. So, there's a lot of options out there. From a macro level, Darren, you're an investor, right? And so I get some of these strategies. You did a great job about the new Ontario housing laws and all that. But from a macro level, from an investing perspective, what are you looking for when you're making kind of an investment? What are the fundamentals for Darren? Not even Synergy, because I want Darren's first.
I think for me right now, it's all about maximizing possibility on a single lot, right? What is the maximum amount of units that I can bring to this property that I'm looking at? And depending on the municipality, almost everything now is going to 3 and 4 units on a single lot. That's changed within the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. That was not there before. So for me, it's about how do we just continue to add units to the market, because there's a dire need for it. And if it's an easy process, if our governments and our municipalities are making it easier for us, that means they want us as real estate investors to do this. They need us. They can't do this themselves. So they need us to help with the housing crisis by adding units to the market.
That's where the opportunity lies, right? Because
Absolutely.
some of the big REITs that myself and Simos were speaking about, Patrick and I think touched on it a little bit, that's not what they're into. They're not going to go in and start building
They're too
lane
small
lands.
for them.
It's exactly. Yeah. And I've heard you say this before, is that your sweet spot is like 6 to 10 units, or is it 8 to 12 or something?
I like 6 to 10 in Ontario.
Yeah.
I call it the missing middle.
Yes, talk about that, man.
Because you've got the developers, the big boys that are doing 300 units. Like you guys are selling in that building. That's amazing. But that requires deep pockets and a tremendous amount of knowledge, right? So what else? People are doing the single family home. Sure. They're doing the duplex conversion. That's cool as well. But the problem with that one is you can't get commercial financing on it. So the reason why I like 6 to 10, especially in Ontario, there's lots of different rules for it, but 6 to 10 gets you into commercial financing. And now CMHC's new program, the MLI Select program, I can amortize my loan over 50 years, which then spreads out my payments, which increases the amount of money I can get. And I can actually do development projects with 5% down payment.
Crazy. See, these are the things that you just can't learn on your own. Now, what I also, you touched on something earlier about raising capital. And to me, that's, it's in the world of joint venturing, really. And I said something earlier when I was speaking about the condo project that, look, the first 10% down is due within the first year. It's approximately 65, anywhere from 50,000 to upwards to 70,000. And so if somebody has $25,000, don't think that you can't get into the investment. You got to think from an investor's perspective, which is, well, I'm going to find a way. Yeah. And finding a way is raising capital and getting someone else like, come on over, Alex, let's you and I do this together. Mm-hmm. You've done a lot of this, man. And so how does someone just even get started? Like, how does someone go? Like, is it sending an email to family and friends? Is it putting out a social media video? Like, what is it where someone that is wanting to do a joint venture, not at the scale necessarily where you're doing it, because they can just partner with you. If like, I think that's really easy. But maybe if they were looking into getting a duplex and they needed 300,000 down together, or you're thinking about this pre-construction condo, I need 70,000, I got to find 35. What's the process? What would you suggest?
I mean, it always starts with the people that know you, like you, and trust you.
There you go.
Which is, of course, your friends and your family.
Yes.
They're the people that you go to and you say, "Hey, I'm looking at doing this deal," and they have a history with you that they think.
Now, some
that
might
you
say
can
don't
execute.
do business with friends and stuff. I think they're the best people to do business.
I think
with
it's where you
personally.
always have to start. Who are you? You're not going to go out to somebody on the street and be like, "Hey, you want to partner on a condo? Just I need $75K." Like nobody's going to give you that money, right?
Trying to get $7.50
Exactly.
for somebody from
So
the
I
state.
think you have to start with friends and family. It
Right.
always starts there. My second piece of advice is really just around, one of the things that you're the best at in the industry, and that is building a brand. People start to know you because of your social media presence. Why did I start a YouTube channel? Because I want to help people be real estate investors, but I also wanted to have people know me, like me, and trust me. And that comes from building credibility, from them seeing me in this light. Every single week I put out a new video and they get to know me and who I am. And
now you have a lineup.
Exactly.
Like, you're not going to say you're too humble. I've known you for too long. Like, you have now a lineup of people that want to invest with you because of the stuff that you put out there. So I want to shift a little, as I like to go kind of back and forth. Again, going back to kind of the macro level in terms of the market. I know what you're thinking from a strategy perspective, but there's people out there that this bubble is going to burst and the values are going to go down, and you've been investing for a long time. You've lost money, and guys, just go check out his YouTube channel. He tells you all the stories. There's a podcast that you've been on mine a couple of times. You tell the story about the investments that you made and lost money, so they can find all that.
Yep.
But right now, are you someone who's like looking for opportunity? I know what type you mentioned. Or are you also like, oh shit, market is doing pretty bad? Or like, what's your thoughts about the market as a whole is what I'm really trying to ask.
Well, so there's obviously been a lot of news around this as of late, and I'm not going to get into politics because I never do, like you.
I'm same.
But, there was some recent, things that happened here in Ontario. We opened up the Greenbelt and then we closed it down again, right? So what does that
There was
do?
like a briefcase going somewhere or something like that they
Exactly.
were saying, yeah.
But all of that has to do with very simple economics, which are supply and demand. And there is not enough supply on the market, and the demand is still there. I am a huge believer in the real estate market now and for the next decade or two. And only because of that one thing. We need to put so many units on the market, and we just are not building them fast enough. So for me, real estate is such a solid investment right now. And yes, you can listen to the headlines, you can listen to all the hype, whatever, but just look at the fundamentals, look at the economics of it. And every economist, every speculator out there on whether the market's going to crash, put that in front of them and say, well, tell me how we're going to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. Tell me how we're going to solve the supply and demand issue. And then they'll say, well, there's no way around it except we have to bring more units to the market. Well, who's going to do that? It's going to be investors like you and like me and like everybody else who's watching today. We're going to add more units to the market, and you need it to be able to keep this country moving.
And yeah, I couldn't have said it better than you just did, brother. And I can't see a time where the supply side is actually going to be fixed.
We can't break.
Not here in the GTA.
No way.
anyways.
We put so many barriers in the place of developers that it'll never happen, because the bureaucratic process, you know how long it takes to get a project in Toronto from the ground all the way to occupancy, or just from concept to occupancy? It's 10 years. Why do you think condos cost what they cost? The only way to stop and make that problem solved is shortening that timeline. Do you think that we could get a building built in Toronto, a 20-story building, in 2 years?
No.
Not a chance right now. How much time is it going to take for those rules to all change? In the meantime, we have a tremendous opportunity as investors to capitalize both financially and ethically, because we're solving two problems. We're bringing units to the market. We're also putting a little money in our pocket, which is why we're all here.
Why do you think some people don't heed that advice that you're giving and actually take action?
Because I think people don't know where to get started. with real estate investing, and also especially with development and adding density and things like that. It's not a simple process. Sometimes it can be. Adding a garden suite, adding a laneway suite, not terribly difficult, right? Doing a duplex conversion, but when you start getting into the 6 units and the 8 units and the 10 units and that kind of stuff, where you start to really see a big difference in adding units to the market, I mean, I think that's a bit of a more complicated process. But I think that's why people, sit on their hands a little bit. Plus, they think there's a huge capital requirement, right? But then when you look at the new opportunities that are available, like I say, with 5% down on a development deal, if you can do this right, you could have a $5 million, $6 million asset and leave $250,000 in a deal.
Do you find that most people, you said why they don't take action in terms of they just don't know where to get started? Where would you advise somebody to get started? Not from an education perspective, because we beat that down, but from like an investment perspective. Like, I'm from the ilk, and again, we can have a healthy debate about it. I'm from the ilk of make it as easy as possible, like boring. I know pre-construction condo is not necessarily the best, like the highest in cash flow. And there's some downsides to it, but I think there's downsides to every type of investment. I just think it's so passive for anybody to get involved in. But some would say, well, no, like I would just get started with multiplexes, or I would just get and I don't think anyone is right or wrong. I think everybody has their own opinion. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think so. There's a couple new products that are available on the market.
Okay.
Like, I've just launched my own MFT, which is a mutual fund trust. And there are actually quite a few developers and investors that are having the ability to do this now.
Okay.
So we used to have to partner with some of the big folks, right? Like Graybrook.
Yep.
You have a great relationship
And I
with
have
them.
somebody on Equiton. Yeah,
Equiton.
I just remember
These
the
guys
company.
are fantastic at what they do, but they only have a certain amount of projects. Graybrook only releases a project like every maybe year or so, and it's snapped up pretty quickly. There's a lot of other players now in the space that have these mutual fund trusts that you can invest in. My deals, you can invest as little as $20,000. You can use your registered funds, and you don't have to do it. You can let me do it. I have the experience to do it. So if you want to go out and partner with somebody like that on a smaller scale, you have that opportunity to do it. So I think the landscape is changing on so many fronts, right? There's so many things that are available to any investor at any different level. It just depends on what the fit is for them.
And are you only now looking at like kind of the GTA as the investment? Are you looking right across province, country? Because you obviously have partners for Synergy in the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, Synergy is the mastermind. I mean,
Yes.
that's the educational sort of build the business program. In terms of my business, I'm focused on 2 markets, Ontario and Costa Rica, and those are my 2 markets. And Toronto mostly is where my projects are. I have 1 project in Kitchener, 1 project just outside of Peterborough, but everything else is literally right in the west end of Toronto.
Okay, and when you say literally the west end of Toronto, that like kind of High Park-ish area? Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's mostly that's a pretty expensive area to get into.
Yeah.
And you're obviously just banking on the fact that all the stuff that you just said, that's why I love you so much, brother, because you actually put your money where your mouth is. You're not only saying like, I believe in Toronto and just saying it, like you actually put your money in one of the most sought after areas, which in itself is the importance of understanding why you should invest into an area like Toronto, the GTA, the GTHA, because you believe that people are just going to keep coming here and there's not enough supply.
Yeah, we're taking single family dwellings and putting 8 units on that property that used to be there. We're getting commercial financing on it. And we've got these brand new purpose-built buildings that are going to be low maintenance for the next decade and have 50-year financing on them. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer in a way, except that the purchase price is $2 million. It's
Right.
$2 million to renovate. And, so there's a lot of that kind of
Right.
stuff, and it takes, a year and a half to do them. So, but at the same time, when you're done, you've got these stabilized buildings that are brand new that are, basically adding 7 new units to the market every time we do a project.
If you were watching earlier, I was talking about being more of a decade trader in business and in life, but specifically in real estate. Is that kind of your thought process? Or are you like, dude, I'm like 20 years out, man. I'm 30 years out.
This is why, when people ask me about the interest rates and things like that, I'm like, well, we're putting 10-year financing on our projects. We just put a 10-year loan on our last project at 3.93%, right? So my costs are essentially fixed for the next decade. Do I believe in the Toronto real estate market over the next 10 years? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously no one has a crystal ball,
Sure.
but at the same time, if I had to hedge my bets, if any market in the country, I would say Toronto and Vancouver would be the places where I would put my money first. And then when you look at what else is around those two markets, I'd be looking at Hamilton. I'd be looking at all these areas because they're suburban markets to the core, right?
And people drive till they qualify.
Exactly.
So a tenant, as an investor, you're looking at your customers who are going to be the tenants. They're going to go out. They can't afford Toronto. They can't afford Mississauga, whatever it may be. They start to go out. You kind of glossed over it, but I know there's people who are like, what the heck did he say about Costa Rica? So why Costa Rica and what the heck's going on over there, brother?
I've been visiting there for so many years, and it was I was there 2 years ago, and I was like, I could not find a place to rent there.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm a developer. Why don't I buy some land here and build something? So
A lot of people think that. They all say that shit. Like, I go away with my wife, and she's like, let's buy a place here. We'd actually never do it.
Yeah.
But you actually did.
Yeah.
So what are you doing there?
Well, and I bought enough land that I could build multiple units. So, we bought basically just under an acre, and we're doing 6 custom homes on this piece of property. The model is we'll sell 3 or 4, basically, and then that'll pay for the entire project.
Okay.
And then we'll own 2 or 3 free and clear, and we'll just rent them on short-term rentals on Airbnb and whatever else.
Any regulations there, like how, like in terms of Airbnb, like is it like just pretty open?
The problem with, or the great thing about some place like Nosara, which is where I invest in Costa Rica, is the whole entire place is designed around short-term rentals. So I'm not worried about something coming in like where it's
a legislation
Toronto.
or something.
Yeah, because the entire market is either hotels or short-term rentals. So that's not going to change anytime soon because that's the entire market. So
Right.
that's going to be there for many years to come.
And in terms of like acquisition for like land there, can you give me an idea what things go for there? Like
We bought our land for 1.2 million USD.
Okay.
We'll build for about $2.5
Okay.
million total, right? So
Call it 5 million you're in,
yeah, so
approximately.
we'll be in for about 4 million.
Okay.
All in for everything.
Yeah.
And we'll sell, like I say, the four properties out of the 6.
Yeah.
That'll be the $4 million we'll need to pay all my investors back and recoup all of our money so that we own these 2 free and clear basically moving forward. And my investors and I will just collect cash flow off the short-term rentals and get to use these properties down in Costa Rica every once in a while.
You being here, and I know you go there often, and vice versa, because then you go there and then you have properties here. There must have been some type of fear at one point, man. Like, I'm not here, and like,
for
how'd you
sure.
get over that stuff?
Well, that was part of I think the mindset shift for me is like, I have to get out of my own way. And that came from just learning from other people that were just much further ahead than I was. I'm like, well, what are they doing? I'm like, well, they have staff. Like, they don't actually need to be on their job sites every day because they hire people that are there to take care of that. And in my case, I have an operations manager now. I have a finance person. I've got my executive assistant. And all those people are here in Toronto, so I don't need to be here for the entire year. So I'm like, I can probably set up my life where I want to work in Costa Rica. I don't go on vacation for 4 months. I just work from a better location, right?
Especially with Zooming
exactly.
now. Yeah,
so it's like, you don't really need to be here.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, I just learned it from other people who were already doing it. And then I started implementing it, and it was a pretty easy transition.
And I know we touched on this a little earlier, but I think it's important because you deal with a lot of investors as well, because a lot of what we spoke about is your investing strategy and everything, and I thank you for that. What are some of the mistakes that you see other investors make?
I think one of the biggest things that I see is people getting panicked when we start to see what we're seeing right now, right? I think that people get very short-sighted and they start to liquidate, they start to do things. I'm like, if you can, hang in there, things are going to change, and not be so quick to make decisions, and exit when the market's down. I see a lot of people do it. They buy high and they sell low. It's
right.
the polar opposite of what we need to be doing.
Right. I mean, and Simos and I were talking about it. Like, you can't change your acquisition price.
No.
Right. But the environment definitely changes in terms of when you might want to sell. The interest rates are going to be changing. You can't control any of that. You can't control acquisition.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at acquisition and acquiring properties, we touched a little bit on the fundamentals. Like, what are you using as a performer? How are you running these numbers, right? There's all these words, but majority of the people, Darren, you know this, they just can't even run a performer, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's something that we can talk about right now that can help them maybe when you're just, like when you're acquiring properties, what's some of the numbers that you're making sure that you plug in?
Well, I think this is why, that's probably a second, mistake that I see a lot of people make is they spread themselves out. I was a classic example. I had properties in Alberta. I've got a property in Newmarket. I've got a property in Hamilton. I got properties in Toronto. I got, all these different markets. I can't be an expert in all those markets. Mm-hmm. So what I've done over the last year and a half, I've liquidated everything. Now I just focus on the market like Toronto. I have like my properties here and in Costa Rica. I'm now down to 2. If you show me a property on the Toronto market today, I can tell you whether that deal's going to work or not.
Because you're
I look
hyper.
I look at the lot size.
Yes.
I look at the zoning and I look at the purchase price. And I'm like, yes, no, and that's all I need to know, right? So because I know these markets so well, because I've created systems that now I can be like, yes, this will work for exactly what we want to do, right? And that's where you can start to, you understand your numbers, your pro formas, all those things, because you've done this multiple times at the same thing. You're just rinsing and repeating.
I love it. I want to come back full circle about synergy now. Before we release any type of gifts or anything of that sort, you spoke about like the 3 types of events that you guys put on. Do you also do virtual stuff? Is my first question. And I came and spoke at like a development course.
Yes.
So talk about that as well. Like
I threw you off with my Synergy shirt. I have too many things that I
know
do.
you do.
Okay, so Synergy is the mastermind. Synergy is this elite group of people, 50 investors from across the country. So we have an annual membership. That is Synergy. My development course, which you spoke at, is what I teach people how to do what I do, which is teaching development. Okay, that's called the Ultimate Development Course. So Synergy is the mastermind. The Ultimate Development Course is where I actually teach people how to be developers.
And then do you do anything from a virtual perspective?
So I do one-day workshops.
Okay.
So if people are like, hey, I don't even know anything about development, I'm not sure if I want to get into it, I'm like, cool. I do a virtual or an in-person one-day workshop to be like, hey, this is the sort of the baseline of, do you even want to be in development?
Okay.
From there, I have a full course, which is there's a virtual element to it, and then there's also a 3-day in-person where we bring everybody in, like you did, to speak at. We go to sites.
I was going to say that you actually take them out to sites
We
and
went to,
hard hats and all of it.
We went to 120 unit builds in my neighborhood. I take them to my sites. So we do all of that. That's part of the course.
Right.
So I know there's, like I said, there's a lot of things that I do. There's the mastermind, there's the one-day, workshop, and then there's the full development course.
And then what about the team that some people would need? Like, do you help with that? Is there resources within Darren's world? And now I can kind of explain it better because we call it Jazz's world around here sometimes. And there's a lot going on. But in Darren's world, you have the development course and the stuff that you teach. You have Synergy.
Yeah.
You have your content that you're putting out there.
Yeah.
But then what about like if somebody needed a general contractor or like anything of that sort? Can people kind of be put in touch with them within your world?
Well, that's why I bring in the people that I do for the development course. I brought you in because if they want to get into a development project where they're building a 300 unit building and they want to go to a realtor team to be like, hey, who's going to sell this for us?
Right.
That's why I brought you in. I bring in construction managers so that they can be like, hey, I want to go and build this building. Who am I going to use to help me? I bring in commercial appraisers. I bring in all those people that are experts in the industry, but they also are the ones that are out there doing things every day that my students can actually use. So they get the knowledge and then they also get the team that's kind of built for them.
Okay, let's give them the goods. Let's give them the gift. I can't thank you enough. Even when you asked you like, Jazz, I'm not sure if you would be comfortable me kind of giving a gift. And I'm like, Darren, like if there's somebody that I vouch for and like that I want my insiders, we're upwards to a little over 11,762 people. I actually think you have the number on the screen. How much is it? 11,818 people that we've been cultivating and nurturing for 19 years. A lot of whom do know you because you have spoken in person. We've done a lot of content, but I want all of them to know you, so then they can make a quality informed decision themselves to see if they want to get into that world of Darren's. What do you got for my guys today, buddy?
Because we've been talking about development a lot today, and I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to come to my one-day workshop, and because it's your audience, and I know that you can do so many things for so many people. part of my mission is also just to give back whenever I can. So I'm going to comp everyone in to my development workshop that's listening here right now. So all you that they need to do is use the code REC. And
where do they go?
They're going to go to, it's my website, basically DarrenVorros.com.
Very
they
easy.
click on the 1-day workshop. They put in REC as the promo code, and that's going to give them the comp to the virtual session.
Stephen, I don't know. Is it on screen? I don't have my phone on. So anyways, it's Darren. It's in the chat. Perfect, guys. Go to the chat right now. Again, you always open up another browser. It's DarrenVorros.com and put in the promo code REC. Is that to the virtual or the in-person you said?
Virtual.
The virtual. Awesome,
Yeah.
guys. So just
if they want to go to the in-person, if they're here in Toronto,
Yeah.
Calgary, Ottawa,
Yeah.
let me know. Just shoot me an email, Darren@DarrenVorros.com.
Perfect.
And I'll do something for them for the live event as well.
Guys, I mean, that's awesome. I think you should see him in person. But if you just want to kind of get your feet wet and find out what's going on in this guy's world and get the education. I mean, we did, obviously we went for about 35 minutes, 40 minutes today. There's tons of content on Darren, on the YouTube channels, on our pages on REC, at our YouTube channel as well. But do yourself a favor. Sit at home in your PJs with a glass of wine, especially, well, I don't know if it starts at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, but if it does, whatever. What time is
9
it?
a.m.
9 a.m.? Okay. I'm not going to advocate
like
for the
a-
glass of wine at 9 a.m.,
maybe a
but do
coffee
your
and a
thing.
Baileys.
Coffees. Sit there and learn more. And then if it's a right fit, go learn more about what he has to offer. Darren, I can't thank you enough. For everyone else, it's very important to understand that before you get into this type of investment, and I know Tyler's here, Laura, so we can also bring on Tyler, but I guess he's not ready yet, but that's fine. That's just what happens around here sometimes. But before you actually make these type of decisions, you really want to take advantage of a real estate action plan. I'm going to be talking to Tyler a little later about what a real estate action plan is, but however, you can book that right now. All you got to do is go to coffeewithrec.com. Maybe you're thinking, hey, do I like that pre-construction stuff? Do I want to get into the world of multiplexing? Do I want to start developing some properties? Where am I going to get the capital from? Can I put a team together? You have all these questions because you're not sure where you are. Maybe you want to start investing your RSPs. Maybe you have registered funds and you want to look at, well, I don't want to do this by myself. Darren's really good at it. I'm not going to be able to do it, but maybe I can partner up with REITs and a real estate investment trust. Whatever that is, you want to get a quarterback. And that's what we do here at REC. There's no cost for it. If you go to coffeewithrec.com, it's very simple to do. You just book a time. You'll have a conversation with our director of investment coaches, and he will put you in touch with the right people. Because at the end of the day, it really does start, in my opinion, as I mentioned earlier, but if you join later, that I like to think I'm the most important person part in this process. I really like to think that. But the most important person is an independent mortgage broker. But you might have a relationship. Maybe that person only helps first-time home buyers or somebody who's downsizing. For this conversation, you want to sit down with somebody who's investor savvy, focused. They have properties. They've helped others grow portfolios. And to set that up, all you got to do is go to coffeewithrec.com.